And there we go. And this is our 7 a.m. gentle class. So from your seated position, wherever you want that to be, just start noticing what your breath is like. You don't have to do anything to change it. But maybe notice if when you breathe in, does your belly expand? Are you breathing into your shoulders? Are they deep, full breaths or little sips of air? And a lot of times in Vinyasa yoga, faster yoga, you're told how to breathe and when to breathe. And maybe today, just focus on allowing the breath to come more easily, more naturally, making space for it, making time for it. As silly as it sounds, sometimes throughout my day, I am forgetting to breathe or to breathe fully enough, or I'm not giving my body the time and space to do that. And before I know it, my shoulders are up to my ears and I'm hyperventilating. And, this is a wonderful time and place to allow space and time for breath. And we'll start to move a little bit just with some gentle neck stretches. So reach your fingertips down to the mat on either side of your body and drop your right ear to your right shoulder, using gravity and the weight of your head to create space on the opposite side. If you want to, you can reach your right hand up to your left ear and gently draw your head farther towards your right shoulder, as long as you're not pushing on it or wrenching your neck, just using it as a gentle guidance. And take one more breath here. And then release your head, letting it float back to center. And then drop your left ear to your left shoulder. Again, you've got the option to draw your head into that stretch. Take one more breath here before you let the head come back to center. And you might want to take a few shoulder rolls if it feels good. You can roll your shoulders back. You can roll them forward. You can get really crazy and roll one at a time, but only if that feels really good for your body right now. And then we'll move into a little bit bigger movements. We're going to take a seated side stretch. So bring your arms up overhead like you would an extended mountain with your biceps up by your ears. And then reach over with both hands to your right side. Let your right hand come down and support yourself while the left hand reaches and extends. So it's not so much about bending yourself in half and getting both hands to the ground. It's about lengthening through the left side body. And come back up to center, both arms up, and then release over to the left side this time. And if you find your shoulder rolling in, or if you find you're looking at the floor more than you are in front of you, see if you can open up the chest, open the front of the body, and draw that right shoulder back. And then return to center. Take one big stretch up to the ceiling and then release both hands down. And we'll do a little twist, just a little baby twist to start getting our spine moving in all directions. So what I like to do is I like to put my right hand behind me and use it kind of as a brace. You don't have to get your hand flat on the floor behind you, but I kind of set my fingertips there. And then bring your left palm to your right knee. From here, sit up nice and tall, and then you can start to look over your right shoulder. And this way you're only twisting as far as your body wants you to, and you're not wrenching your spine or forcing it. Slowly start to unwind back to the center. And then we'll switch sides, bringing your left hand behind you and your right hand to your left knee. Sit up tall with a straight spine and start to look over your left shoulder. And unwind, return to center again. Right. And we're going to do one more seated pose before we move. So if your hips are bugging you or you need to wiggle out a little bit, you can. This is moving the spine in the same direction as cat and cows, but we get to do it from seated instead, which is always a little refreshing for me. So you're going to start with your hands teed out wide. And as you inhale, draw the shoulders back, lift your gaze up slightly, and arch your back like you would for cow. And then exhale, round the spine, sucking the belly button in, and bring your hands together. Interlace your fingers as you inhale, reach those interlaced fingers up towards the ceiling. And exhale, release your hands back out to the sides. And you can move through with your own breath because you might be inhaling and exhaling faster or slower than I am. But start to match your breath to the movement. As you inhale, draw the shoulders back, arch the back. Exhale, round the spine, bring the hands together. Inhale, interlace fingers up to the ceiling. And exhale, release the hands back out to the side. And we'll do one more on your own time, your own breath. And when you're finished with that last round, you can release both hands back down to your sides. And from seated, we're going to move into a child's pose. So you can either swing your legs out to the side and come onto your knees that way, or if you've got your ankles crossed, you can kind of rock forward if your knees are okay with this. And then uncross your legs so that you can bring your knees wide to the edge of the mat. Bring your big toes to touch. Send your hips back to meet your heels and slide your hands forward on the mat. You can stay here. If you want to, you can bring your forehead all the way down to the mat. And you can always come back to child's pose at any point in time that you want to. It's meant to be a resting pose. If it's not very restful for you, that's understandable. You're welcome to take another pose to rest if you want. But this is always available. It's always an option. And from your child's pose, start to press weight into your hands. Walk your hands back. Bring yourself back up. Eventually reaching a tabletop with your hips over your knees and your shoulders over your wrists. And we could take a few organic movements here. If you want to take a few more cat and cows, you can. You can snake side to side and play with some side body movements, some shoulder stuff. And then we're going to move into Sphinx. So the easiest way to get there is just to start walking your hands out along the mat in front of you until you get all the way down onto your belly. I'll scoot back so you can see. So once you come all the way down onto your belly, you can start to lift your chest up off the mat like you would for Cobra. That you are going to rest your forearms on the mat in front of you. And you can decide how much of a back bend you want. If you move your elbows farther away from you, it will be a more gentle back bend. And I like to turn my toes in towards each other. Normally I don't because it goes against all of my ballet and dancer training, not to mention yoga training. But if you turn those feet in towards each other, it may release the low back a little bit for you. So if you do a lot of driving or a lot of sitting, this can sometimes give you a lot of relief. Once you've found a Sphinx pose that you want to stay in for a little while, soften your neck so it's not working so hard to hold up your head. Or you can bring your gaze down to the place on your mat between your elbows. You could even grab a block or a rolled up blanket or something to set under your forehead. And that way your neck doesn't have to work so hard in this pose. When you're ready, we can start to lower down all the way down to the mat, bringing one cheek down to the mat so that you're completely flat. Just taking a moment to rest and to counter that back bend with a neutral spine. And then bring your hands under your shoulders as you press yourself back, push weight into your knees. And we'll come back to tabletop again. And from tabletop, we're going to move into a bit of a lunge. So start to inch your right foot up between your hands, however you want to get there. And once your right foot is between your hands on the mat, we're going to take a little bit of time just to hinge back and forth to start warming up the hips. And then we're going to take an inside twist. So since your right foot is forward, plant your left hand on the mat next to it. It should still be under your shoulder, supporting your shoulder. And then reach your right hand up to the ceiling. So your torso is twisting towards your front leg. And your gaze can be up at your top hand if that feels okay on your neck. Your gaze can be straight to the back wall, or you can look down at your hand on the mat supporting you, whichever feels best and helps you balance, because there's a little bit of balance going on here. And then release that hand down to the mat. Send your front foot back. And you can shake out that foot. You can stretch it out a little bit. If you want to make circles with your knee, you can do that. Doing these hip circles. And then we'll switch sides. So this time, your left foot comes between your hands. And let's shimmy it up there. And take the same time to hinge back and forth a little bit, waking up the hips. And when those hips are feeling pretty good, or at least a little bit awake, plant your right hand on the mat under your shoulder. Lift up the left hand to the ceiling so that your torso is twisted towards your front leg, your left leg. And keep breathing in this pose, because breathing is important. And then release your left hand down to the mat, framing your front foot. Press weight into both your hands so that you can send your front foot back. And shake it out, stretch it out, whatever feels good. Maybe some hip circles. And whenever you feel pretty even, you can come back to tabletop. Well, from tabletop, we're just going to push back to standing at our knees. And we'll set up for gate pose. So for gate pose, there's a little bit of balance involved in this too. So if you want to turn so that you can have fingertips on a wall, that sometimes comes in handy. Or you can just get wild and crazy and really test your balance today. So what I usually do is I shift my weight into my left knee so that I can start to slide my right foot out straight. And I will have my foot with, it's parallel to the short edge of the mat. So kind of like I would have in Warrior Two. And if that doesn't feel good on your foot, it doesn't have to. It just makes me feel more stable. And once you have that right leg extended, reach both hands up overhead, and you're going to take a side body stretch towards your extended leg. So towards your right leg. And we took a side stretch from seated, and now we're building on it, trying to create length all the way from the fingertips through the side of the body, through the hip. I'll take one more breath here. And then let that top arm draw you up and back to center. And then we'll switch legs. Bring that right leg in. Left leg extends out to the side with your foot planted on the mat. And once you're feeling pretty okay, pretty solid, you can reach your arms up overhead and then reach over to the left side. And depending on where you're at today and what kind of activities you do on a daily basis, which muscles are tight, some people do feel this on the outside of their body that's extended. Sometimes I will feel a lot more sensation on the inside of my extended leg, on that inner thigh. And sometimes that can be nice too. Sometimes it's much needed. So our two sides are different. So it might feel a little bit different, and that is okay. One more breath. And then return to center. Let your arms drop down to your sides. Bring that leg back under you. And then we're going to take melting heart pose. Melting heart pose is almost child's pose, but not quite. So you're going to keep your hips lifted like they are in tabletop. You're not going to sink them back, but you are going to slide your hands out in front of you and sink your heart towards the mat. I kind of think of melting heart pose like the top half of my body is doing downward dog and the bottom half of my body is still in tabletop. And then when you're ready, bring your hands back under your shoulders. And then we're going to make our way onto, I think we're going to come to sitting. So I usually just push myself back with my ankles crossed, but you can come to sitting however you want to. And then we're going to do a one-legged forward fold. So you can pick whichever leg you want to start with. and extend it out in front of you. The other leg can come to the inside of your thigh, kind of like tree pose, only sitting. And make sure your sit bones are firmly on the ground and the toes of your extended foot are pointing up towards the ceiling, so your foot is flexed. You can stay here if you want to, or if you want to fold forward, you can start by reaching your hands up overhead and with a flat back, engaging your core, start to lead with your heart to reach over that front foot. And when you can't go any farther, release the hands and you can fully fold over that front leg. And in this pose, your body will start to tell you what it wants. If it wants to go, if it wants you to fold a little bit deeper because that feels good on the leg, then you can do that. Your body will also tell you if it doesn't like it, especially in the back. So if your back starts to get really tight, you can lift the chest. You can still reach your heart towards your toes and get the benefits in the hamstrings, but without that back pain. So listen to your body. Sometimes it knows how to tell you what it wants. If you're folded forward over your leg, place your hands on the ground on either side of your extended leg and start to use your hands to press yourself back up to sitting and move very, very slowly. When you move your legs, maybe even use your hands to pull that extended leg in towards you. And then you can have both feet flat on the ground With your knees bent, you can windshield wiper the knees a little bit. And before we do the other side, we're going to move into deer pose. So if you had your right leg straight out in front of you, then you're going to bend that knee and then bring the right leg behind you. If you had the left leg extended, you would do this with the left leg. So you've got your front leg is now your back leg, and both knees are bent. So you're kind of in a spiral. I don't know if you guys can see my legs on the camera. So this is deer pose, and you can stay here, or you can put one hand behind you to act as a brace, and you can lift your hips up off the mat. And if you're looking for a little bit of a quad stretch or the hip flexor, this is going to be a good one. And sometimes I'll put both hands behind me so that I can lift up just a little bit. It doesn't have to be a big movement to be a big sensation. And then release back down to the mat if you lifted your hips. And this time we will switch sides. So your front leg comes, or your back leg comes back in front. And then your front leg can extend out, and you should have your feet switched. If they're not, just make sure that you do whichever side you haven't done yet. And once you get your sit bones on the ground again, sit up nice and tall. And take a minute to check out this side and see, okay, I know that the other side liked this particular thing, but does this side want me to fold forward? So you can play with it a little bit. And if you do want to fold forward, reach your hands up overhead, lead with your heart and a flat back. And when your back starts to round, release your hands. And you can either stay here, or if you choose, you can fully collapse forward. Just being mindful of your back. And if you're folded forward over your leg, place your hands on either side of your leg and start to walk them back towards yourself to come back up to sitting. Use your hands to draw that knee in. You can take a few more windshield wipers if you want. And then bring that front leg behind you, bent, so that you have your front knee bent, your back knee bent for deer pose. If you are already getting a bit of a stretch in the front of that back leg, you can stay here. If you want a little bit more hip flexor, you can put both hands behind you, lift up the hips a little bit. Sometimes I also have to lean back into it and find that sweet spot. And then release back down. And we'll go ahead and move onto our backs. So if you want to bring both legs in front of you and roll down, you can do that. Or if you have a more favorite way to get onto your back, you can do that. And before we set up for Shavasana, we'll do a figure four. So for figure four, both knees are bent. Cross your right ankle just above the left knee. And then let your right knee drop out. And then you can start to lift your left toes off the mat as you bring that whole leg towards you. You can even grab your left thigh and draw it towards you gently. And let the left foot come back down to the mat, releasing that figure four. And your right leg can slide all the way down. Take some movement to release any tension and then switch sides. So bend both knees, feet flat on the floor. This time left ankle crosses just above right knee. And then you can start to peel the right foot off the mat as you bring the knee towards you. You might need a little bit more time on this side, or you might need a little bit of less time to feel even and balanced between your right leg and your left leg. So you get to decide whenever you feel even that you can release that foot back down to the mat. And then you can uncross your legs and both legs all the way down to the mat, sliding them out all the way. And reach your arms up above your head, point your toes, maybe take a big yawn. You get a good morning stretch in there, and then relax everything. And set yourself up for your final Shavasana. If you want to stay here on your back with your feet fallen open and your hands down by your sides, you can. If you want to put your feet flat on the mat with your knees bent, if that feels good on your back, you can do that. You can place a hand on your belly if you want. So find your version of Shavasana. And enjoy this time that you've set aside for yourself to rest and to let all of the hard work that you do in yoga take hold. Start to bring some awareness back into your body. Feeling where your arms and your legs are resting on the ground. You can feel that the ground is solid underneath them and supporting them. And so you can start to take some small movements. You might wiggle your fingers and your toes a little bit, or roll your wrists and your ankles in little circles. And then you might make some bigger movements, rotating your arms and legs in and out a little bit. And when you're ready, roll onto your side, bringing the knees in towards your chest a little bit, and then using your arm as a pillow. And taking your time, you can put your hands on the ground and press yourself up to sitting, taking your time. You can keep your eyes closed or you can open them and keep your gaze soft. And come up to a comfortable, easy seat. And take one big breath. Exhale it all like a big sigh. And I hope you feel ready to tackle your Tuesday. Thank you so much for doing yoga with me this morning. The light in me sees, honors, and reflects the light in you. Namaste. Have a good one. Thank you.